Many of you all are familiar with the situation with Ilhan Omar and Donald Trump. Donald Trump decided to take to Twitter and post a video basically alleging that Ilhan Omar somehow, because she's Muslim and some of the words she said that he took completely out of context. Can you believe it? I know. Donald Trump took someone's words completely out of context. It's not like he's ever done such a thing. Oh my God. So someone who hates fake news, he sure has grown very comfortable with pushing fake news as of late. But I'm not going to put Ilhan's words into context for her. I'll explain what she means, but I'll let her put her words into context.
It doesn't matter how good you are. If you one day find yourself in a school where other religions are talked about, but when Islam is mentioned, we are only talking about terrorists. And if you say something, you are sent to the principal's office. So to me, I say raise hell, make people uncomfortable. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it, and every single Muslim in this country should be tired of it. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. So you can't just say that today someone is looking at me strange, that I am going to try to make myself look pleasant. You have to say, this person is looking at me strange. I am not comfortable with it. I am going to go talk to them and ask them why. Because that is a right you have.
All right. Where is the lie? More specifically, where is the problem? See, what Ilhan Omar said is true. You all understand this, right? See, I guess you kind of have to have an understanding of how the United States works. So I'm a black man. Many of you probably are aware of this. Can you believe it? And black people went through this thing at one point in life called slavery. Yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing. And there were a lot of white people who were okay with this. But there were also a lot of people who weren't okay with it. But they couldn't really say much about it. Why? Because the overwhelming consensus was that black people were slave material, they were lesser than, and that is their position. Because in order for you to be okay with an entire race being enslaved, and treated the way that black people were, in the United States specifically, you have to manufacture consent. That's how it works. Same thing with Jim Crow. MLK talked about the moderate white man that was more dangerous than the KKK as far as when it comes to the liberation of black people. Why? Because they believe the consensus is what the lawmakers and the racists and all those people, they believe that the consensus is that. And because consent has been manufactured and they're worried to go against the grain, they stay quiet. So the question is Ilhan correct about Muslims? Well, let me ask you this. We've all been to elementary school. A lot of us have been to middle school. Most of us have been to high school. I know everybody ain't graduate high school. That's between you and your guidance counselor. But it depends on what part of the country you grew up in. But you get to learn Spanish, of course, French, usually, even Latin, which is kind of weird, but I mean, it's useful, still weird. And depending on which part of the country, like if you live in like New York, for example, you can even learn Italian in high school. Like there are certain languages that are okay to be learned, certain histories that are okay to be taught in grade school. How many of you all were allowed to learn or had a program that taught at the highest levels Arabic, Desi, Farsi, anything like that? Hell, even Urdu. I'll wait. I know in college, depending on what university you go to, you can learn these things. But majority. Now, isn't that peculiar for us to have been involved in that region? Like, we've really been involved in it for the last 70 years, but in my generation, we've been involved in this region for the last 2 decades, like in multiple areas of the region. Like, if you're going to have people, America's constantly engaging with these people, like we have Americans constantly engaging with Spanish, like with people who speak Spanish, which is why we teach Spanish. Wouldn't it be smart to have people know the type of culture they're dealing with, the language that they're of the people they're going to be shooting at, potentially, so they can say, "Yo, you should go somewhere, put your gun down," things like that, basic commands that would stop people from getting killed, those type of things. Don't you think that'd be smart? Yeah, no. See, I speak a couple languages myself, and one of the things you have to do to speak or learn another language, especially if you want to learn it fluently, is you have to delve into that culture. You have to understand these people, and you have to understand, because that's the only way you're going to be able to understand, when to use certain idioms, why you can say certain things in certain situations and not say it in other situations. Things like that. How to properly address your elders, like in Korean, or how to properly talk shit in Spanish or Portuguese, for example. It's like English, of course. There are rappers like French Montana, for example. He didn't speak English, but he was raised in the hood, so he learned how to. He spoke enough slang specifically that he didn't speak English fluently, quote unquote, until 15, but that was only slang, and he became a rapper because he was actually involved in the culture. So it made sense to him. Everything, the idioms, the slang, and all that stuff, the ebonics, it made sense to him. So that's why you're not allowed to learn Arabic or any of the other languages that I've discussed, because that's part of manufacturing consent. We are told about every other country in the Middle East about how bad they are, right? They're so bad. They're horrible. 9/11 was committed by Saudi Arabians. Osama bin Laden is a Saudi Arabian royalty. He's royalty. Saudi Arabian royalty trained by the CIA. Right now, in court, as we speak, Judge Locke in Fort Lauderdale, right up the street, ZLOCH. You can go look this up. There is a federal case against Saudi Arabians for 9/11 right now as we speak. But we never even went near Saudi Arabia for what happened in 9/11. Instead, we found ourselves in Afghanistan. Interesting. And then, of course, we found ourselves in Iraq. Interesting. You're a little bit more quick to the trigger if you can't understand what someone is pleading to you. You're a little bit more quick to say something bigoted or racist or Islamophobic if you don't understand the culture and you've never been introduced to it other than the propaganda that we've been exposed to in the United States. So what Ilhan is saying is true. And what's so sad about it is that the only ones who have gotten this right consistently are Tulsi, Bernie, and Rashida Tlaib. The Democrats shit the bed on this. They're part of the reason that the GOP has gotten away with this for so long, that Donald Trump specifically has gotten away with this for so long. Now, you might have noticed that I left out AOC, and the unfortunate truth is she She didn't do this. Remember when all this stuff popped off with the anti-Semitism comments? Anti-Semitism? Yeah. She was kind of silent, and then when she left her girl hanging for like 2 days. Her homie, her friend, for 2 days. And then she finally spoke up and say, but she apologized. Listen, I know I'm a fan of AOC, but I tell her like it is. You can't, so now you want to come out of full-fledged defense of Ilhan. You want to come out of full-fledged defense of Ilhan after your party has given you consensus to do so. That's not the right way to do this. Rashida Tlaib, right side of history, from the jump street. Bernie Sanders, right side of history, from jump. Tulsi Gabbard, right side of history, from jump. In other words, from the beginning. But the Democrats and their half-assed responses, if y'all cheat Tulsi or Bernie, that's why Trump is going to win again. You don't know how to take a stand. Half of y'all wouldn't even mention her name. Tom Perez goes on CNN with Chris Cuomo and starts defending George W. Bush instead of defending Ilhan. Even though we are very aware that he knows the context of Ilhan's words. She was saying that some people who are not representative of Islam, who are not representative of Islam in any way, committed a crime that now all Muslims are paying for around the world. And that is 100% true. Oh, but we're going to get to Donald Trump. Because he thinks he's slick. And see, I've seen my fair share of bullies in my life. I've whooped a couple of their ass, to be completely honest with you. And I know what they're like. See, whenever your administration isn't in control, like your life, your home life, because that's basically Trump's home life now. It's his administration, not his control. Whenever you are in the midst of instability and you feel like you have no power to change it, then you go to school with your chest all big like this. You find the littlest kid, and then you start wailing on him. You go attack a freshman congresswoman who was black, who was Muslim, who was a hijabi, because you know that there has been enough consent manufactured, whether it's explicit racism and bigotry or implicit, like the kind that comes from the Democrats, that you could get away with it. But you're only doing that because you shit the bed and got exposed when you were silent on Julian Assange and you lost millions of followers and supporters in 24 hours with one video clip. You got exposed for the punk bitch you are. And you are indeed a punk bitch. You left Julian Assange and WikiLeaks hanging after praising them for 2 years. You exposed that you have absolutely no control over your administration, nor did anybody believe you had any control of your administration. I realized that the moment that you had Tulsi Gabbard in your office, she convinced you to pull the CIA out of Syria, and you let your administration convince you to launch missiles at Syria without doing any investigation, then put troops back into Syria, and then you refuse to have Tulsi Gabbard in your presence again. See, what I love about Trump is that he's so easy to expose. Most of the time, I don't do a lot of Trump videos. But he's so easy to expose when it comes to stuff like this. And when you have opportunity to expose him like this, you got to do it because his followers need to know. See, Trump pretends like he hates Sharia law. That's what he always talks about. Sharia law, 9/11, Sharia law. I love that. Like, we already know about his comments. Like, now my building's the biggest building. Like, yeah, he said it, and it's exactly what I would expect Trump to say, unfortunately. But if he has such a problem with Sharia law, and all of a sudden he cares so deeply about 9/11, why does he have this love affair with Saudi Arabia? Because they're one of only, 2 countries, maybe? Yemen might be the other one that's closest. 95% of Muslims don't practice Sharia law. That's more in line with Wahhabism. Wahhabism is practiced by the Saudi Arabian regime that you love so much, that you brag about your relationship with on Twitter all the time, with the same regime, once again, who is most likely responsible for the attacks of 9/11. At least their family members, or one of them, was partially responsible, or at least responsible for orchestrating it, as far as we know. But you have a problem with Ilhan Omar from Sudan. That's who you want to punch at. You're not going to punch up at the Saudi royal family, though, will you? You know why? Because, like Tulsi said, Trump is Saudi Arabia's bitch. And more specifically, Trump is just a whole bitch. You lost half of your I mean, you got exposed. Everyone saw it. Everyone saw it. And now you're lashing out like a child. You can't stand up for or to anybody with power, but you want to punch down at a freshman congresswoman. Oh, look at the big bad boy. Come on, bruh. You're a punk. And I genuinely hope his followers see this. Because it's old. The act is time is up. You've been exposed, bro. Just take your licks and move on with your life. Nobody is buying it anymore. Yeah, you got a few sycophants out there still defending you, but the big names are turning on you and they're going to bring their supporters with them. Stop trying to distract everyone from Julian, because that's what you're trying to do. And just admit, you punked out. Thanks for watching that segment of Mika Says Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.